Is Dan Snyder going to be out in Washington? The latest on the Commanders owner and what Jim Irsay had to say about the situation. Plus, DeSean Jackson has a new home, and your Week 7 power rankings.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, and welcome in to a Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL. He's Tony Wiggins. I'm James Rapien. We have a ton to get to. Today's show brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. And thank you so much, as always, for making us your first listen here on Locked On NFL, where we're free every single day, wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube. So follow and subscribe. And Tony, let's dive right on in because, man, oh man, on Tuesday evening, late Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening, Jim Irsay started it, and it certainly didn't end there. Irsay saying that he thinks that Dan Snyder should be removed as owner of the Washington Commanders. And I have a quote here. And he talked to a bunch of reporters and he said, quote, "Some of the things I've heard doesn't represent us at all. I want the American public to know that what we're about as owners. I believe it's in the best interest of the National Football League that we look at this squarely in the eyes and deal with it." Certainly sounds like, he wants Snyder out. He also said, "I think there's merit to removing him as the owner of the Commanders." And so, of course, when something like that happens, people are reacting on social media. But Tony, I'll get to, I promise, but there's more here, because then the Commanders were quick to respond. First, a spokesperson releasing a statement, and I'm not going to read the entire thing, but it said, quote, "It is highly inappropriate, but not surprising that Mr. Irsay opted to make statements publicly based on falsehoods in the media." And it went on to deny some things. Also, Snyder sent an email or a memo, letter, if you will, to all 31 other NFL owners today, in which he denied the ESPN report that came out and things in it. And one thing that he specifically mentioned in the letter, and I'm paraphrasing here, but and I'm sure you read that report last week, as a lot of our listeners, maybe all of our listeners did. But the part where Snyder was gathering information on the other 31 owners to use as leverage, he categorically denied that and really tried to hammer that home in this 4 paragraph letter to the rest of the NFL owners. So what's your reaction to this? Obviously, there's a lot to it when it comes to Dan Snyder. And now it looks like there's a fight, because Snyder says he's not going to sell, that Snyder say they're not going to sell the Commanders. And now you have an owner in Jim Irsay saying, that he, along with other owners in the league, are probably leaning towards that.
This has been a black eye on the NFL, regardless of what has happened. And Dan Snyder, I don't know what he did or what he didn't do, but I tell you what, ain't no coming back from the allegations. It is what it is. Unless you're going to call all of the owners and all of the investigators and everyone else involved a liar. And now that he said that he hasn't gathered this information on these other 31 owners, then if they do decide to get rid of him, he better not then come back and go scorched earth. Sometimes, man, if you care about something enough, you just walk away. He's done enough for there's, where there's smoke, there's fire. It might not be the burning earth that everyone says. It might not be lava running through Ashburn, Virginia, but you have to always ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth it for him to stay for his beloved Washington team, regardless of what he did or didn't do? And I'm not one to ever run away from a fight, but what I am, cognizant of is this: if there's a point of no return, and if you did anything close to what people are saying, sometimes you just walk away, cut your losses, go take your $4 million or $4 billion you're going to get, and go do something else. Because at this point, you have sullied the reputation of yourself. You sullied the reputation of a lot of other people. And at some point, everyone's not out of step with Daniel. You know what I'm saying? There have been too many people that said all of these things. There have been too many people who have been removed. And quite frankly, your team is last in revenue. And I know that's irrelevant to the broader scope, but it really isn't. Nobody likes you, not even the people in that city. Therefore, it's enough. You're not going to ever garner enough support to overcome what Irsay has said. Now, to his point and to his credit, there's a process for this. And the only thing Irsay could be gaining right now is currying favor from fans and media people for saying this type of stuff. He's entitled to his opinion, but there's also a process, and this doesn't make that process any better. He's had his own troubles that he's had to deal with, and he wanted privacy, right? So why sully the opportunity or the chance that this due process will be questioned by Daniel Snyder if you're going to say something, and the only thing you gain is favor from media and fans? It's just not worth it.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell also discussed this or was asked about this, and he said it's an ongoing investigation. When Mary Jo White is done with the investigation, we'll share the report. There's no reason for speculation until we have that report. So it's one of those things where you're right. I mean, it's not like, and Goodell did say that he was okay with Irsay voicing his opinion, but all this really does now is create more smoke or add more gas to the fire. You know, there was already a fire. There was already speculation. There was already plenty of talk about him and the Snyders in general not owning the Commanders long-term. But now you have this, and you have an owner speaking out. And look, this is a very, very, and I'll say it one more time, very exclusive club. There are 32 people in the world that are NFL owners. It is really hard to get into. And so that's the part of this. And from a history standpoint, there's never been a time where NFL owners, and you would need 24 of 32 to vote an owner out. That's never happened. And so it could be unprecedented. And what Jim Irsay was talking about would be unprecedented. And that doesn't mean, I mean, you saw the situation with the Panthers a few years ago. You know, things could happen where guys just say, or owners just say, all right, I'm going to sell. But as far as the force out, that there's no precedent for that.
There is no precedent for it, but we're seeing it's like every year or two, there's something that happens that there's no precedence for. I mean, John Gruden getting fired because of emails. You know, the Commanders firing, or at the time then the Washington football team firing Allen for his going back and forth on those emails with John Gruden, amongst other things. The allegations, though, that they were passing around, and it's not funny. It's just that I hate when dudes get caught up in their BS like this, that they were actually passing around pictures or videos of young ladies changing in the locker. That's just pathetic. That's ridiculous. So what you have is you have a total loss of confidence in him. And then folks that he actually had on his side up in the DMV area in Maryland or Virginia, none of them are willing right now to even give him a new stadium. They're last in revenue, and their stadium is a dump. He has to understand there's no upward mobility for him to ever be owner again of this team and for people to regain trust. You have to just take your money, take your $4 billion, man, and go on about your business and just let it go.
And that's the part of it where if I'm him, it is an exclusive club and you've got plenty of money, but man, that club has never been worth more than it is today.
No.
NFL teams, I mean, they're just worth so much money. And you're right. There's talk about this in the NBA. Like when teams are for sale, they're always, in this day and age, the exclusive clubs, they're going to go for more than the sticker. The MSRP, let's use the car analogy. The MSRP, it's going to go for more than that. So, what's the worst case scenario for Dan Snyder? He makes a lot of money.
And there is no best case scenario for him because regardless of whatever happens at this point, he's done. There's nothing for him to gain. And oh, by the way, the one way that he could possibly regain anything in that area, and it's as wrong as it is, we know what winning does, right? Look at Robert Kraft. We know winning makes people have a very, very short memory, right? He hasn't shown that he can do that in over 20 years of owning this team. So therefore, he can't even get that part of it right. So the only chance that he has, which is a small, unfortunate chance, is to win and win a lot. He can't do it. He has no upside as the owner of the team, and he should let him go.
Up next, we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about New York, briefly, because then we'll get to talk about my favorite position, wide receivers. And the Ravens' new wide receiver, he's flashy, he's speedy. Is he actually going to help Lamar Jackson? We'll dive into that next. But first, a word from LinkedIn, because these days, every new professional hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you're going to get the perfect candidate that's going to come in and contribute right away and fill the role that you need filled right away. LinkedIn Jobs can help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is go to linkedinjobs.com/lockedonnfl, and they have simple tools that seem simple, but they're effective. Screening questions that make it easy to focus on the candidates with the right skills, with the right experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to hire and bring in to help your company. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So go to linkedinjobs.com/lockedonnfl right now to post your job for free. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Again, that's linkedinjobs.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
And now in segment 2, we'll start off with what sounds like a law firm. In fact, the next once thing's gonna sound like a law firm, the next thing's gonna sound like a song we know. The second thing is New York, New York. We touched on it last week. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, I want to talk about Jackson and Jackson, right? Let's talk about Jackson and Jackson. I don't know how long ago it was that he did one of the podcasts. I believe it was the I Am Athlete podcast.
Last week.
It was. DeSean Jackson, one of the greatest deep threats of all time. Fast as Sutton, one of the most fast and sudden players you've ever seen. Talked about, he says, man, I'm not retired. And this will be his 15th year. He says, nah, I ain't retired. I'm not done yet. And he mentioned Lamar Jackson is someone he might want to play with. Well, guess what? Someone heard that cry because he went up to visit the Ravens, and he is now signing with the Baltimore Ravens as a veteran who will be in his 15th season for the rest of the year. What do you think precipitated this, James? Do you think it'll make any difference? Because people have been talking about DeSean Jackson going up there. They've been talking about him. They've been talking about Antonio Brown before all of this other stuff came up. They've always talked about adding a receiver like this to Baltimore. What do you think brought it up, and how effective do you think it'll be?
Well, Rashad Bateman being out, certainly part of it. You watch the Ravens, and I just think using more speed, getting another weapon, getting someone that can win as Lamar creates. And I think that's as big of a factor as anything, because DeSean Jackson isn't the most durable guy in the world, especially now at 35. He'll be 36 in December, but he still averaged 22 yards a catch last year.
He did,
with the Rams and Raiders. He's still effective in a gadget complementary role. And that's what I think you do if you're the Ravens. You get him out there, you have him run go routes, you get him in space. He may only get a couple touches per game, or even a couple targets per game, but those 2 targets could go for 2 touchdowns. And it forces a defense to have to game plan, like you said, for Jackson and Jackson, another speedy guy on this offense. And maybe it does open things up for Mark Andrews a little bit. Maybe it does open things up for Rashad Bateman when he gets back. He's not the same guy he was, but in a smaller role where you're giving him 15 to 20 snaps per game, or you're using him as a decoy at times. And that doesn't mean you're not giving him touches, because like I said, he can be effective. I think that's what he can be at this part of his career. And good for the Ravens, because, they have, Devin Duvernay has had a breakout year so far, former Texas Longhorn. He was a returner his first couple years in the league, but this year he's had a breakout campaign. So you have him now, you have Rashad Bateman, obviously Mark Andrews and DeSean Jackson. You have some speed, and you have guys that can win deep downfield when defenses are worried about containing Lamar Jackson and keeping him in the pocket. And so I think DeSean Jackson's going to make a few big plays. I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowler or some crazy game changer, but I do think he helps, no doubt.
Y'all know I love hip hop and R&B and a little bit of old school rock, but I'm going to go Toby Keith on you here. DeSean Jackson can walk in and say, I might not be as good as I once was, but I can be as good once as I ever was.
Love it.
Ain't
Love
that it, man? Did I nail it?
You nailed it.
So all he has to do is just make a play. They've lost some games this year where all they needed one guy to do one thing. There you go. So I expect that they're going to hope that he can come in and Toby Keith that situation and give them that one play they need per game. He doesn't have to be Stephon Diggs, and he doesn't have to be Tyreek Hill, which he used to be a combination of both of those guys. He doesn't have to do that anymore. Now he just has to be a guy who can make a play every now and then, stay healthy. And I think they believe they're close, and I think that if they're going to count on anyone to get them over the hump, then it's going to be a 35-year pro, a guy who is he ain't going to drop it. All he has to do is get open. And if you put it out there, he's going to catch it. And he ain't going to fumble. He's a professional assassin as a wide receiver. And guys like that don't lose the ability to do it just a little bit. They lose the ability to consistently do it week after week. So 20, 25 snaps, make a play, and maybe they win these games.
And he's going to be facing third and fourth cornerbacks. That's the other part of it. And so how many fourth corners want to look at and see, oh, that's DeSean Jackson. A lot of those guys are usually younger. Like, man, I grew up watching him. I watched him score a bunch of touchdowns in Philadelphia and then have success as his bumps around the league. Who knows? But no, I like the addition because it's no risk. I mean, what's the risk? And you've certainly got better, at least on paper. Real quick, we mentioned New York. And last week we talked about it at length, so go back and listen if you missed that. But the Giants, the Jets, winners again. The Jets handling business in Green Bay. The Giants coming back to take down the Ravens. What a comeback that was. Man, New York, they're flying high right now.
Nothing I love more than being ahead of the curve on something and coming up with some organic idea, which me and you did in pre-show last week. And then we talked about it. And then all I heard this Sunday night and Monday morning was New York. Like both teams are really, really good, right? The one question on a serious note that we did have, you and I, when we discussed it, was this: how truly good are the Giants? And the one thing that I brought up is this: they look ugly, but I think they're going to make everybody they play look like that. They're going to drag you down that alley. It's not going to be in Manhattan. We're going to the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to have a fight in the back of this alley by this trash can. That's what they're going to do. They did it last week to a really, really good team. We'll see if they can get that done here Sunday in Jacksonville. We hope not, because the Jaguars need a victory.
Yeah, things have been sort of ugly in your neck of the woods. So we'll see if they can keep it going this week. Certainly interesting, though, to see both New York teams. Uncommon, weird. I don't even know how to talk about both New York teams with winning records playing well. Certainly fun to see. Up next, well, we're going to dive into our Week 7 Locked On NFL Power Rankings. Where do the Giants and Jets fall? Where are the Ravens following their loss and addition of DeSean Jackson? We'll dive into that next. But first, a word from BetOnline, because BetOnline is your number one source for all things football betting info this season. And the best part about BetOnline, it's free to sign up, and they're going to have every odds, all the odds that you're looking for. And I've used them. I've won a bunch of money. And whether it's on the NBA, whether it's the NFL, whether it's college football, whether it's MMA, whether it's boxing, it doesn't matter. They're going to have you covered at BetOnline. So check them out right now. It's really easy to sign up. You can use your cell phone. You don't even need a tablet or a PC or a laptop. You could do those things as well, of course. But sign up, check out all the different odds, and start winning today at BetOnline, where the game starts.
You start here with us every single day here on Locked On NFL. You know what I almost did, James. You know I almost said it. I almost said it, but nope. This is not that other show that I do. This is Locked On NFL. And I got to let you know about NFL Key Predictions that happens on every Friday. You make this your first listen. Your next listen should be to check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, who James just mentioned, at BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Let's talk about some power rankings, man. Some risers and some fallers.
Yeah, let's dive on in. And no shock, the Buffalo Bills, after their win over the Kansas City Chiefs, they are number 1 in the rankings. The Eagles staying put at 2. The Chiefs, despite the loss, staying put at 3. And this is where it gets interesting because you have 4 risers. The Chargers at 4, Vikings at 5, the Bengals at 6, the Giants all the way up to 7. The Ravens fall to 8 following their loss. Tampa Bay Buccaneers all the way down to 9. And the San Francisco 49ers 10 after their ugly, ugly loss to the Falcons.
I would have liked to see maybe 2 or 3 of those teams that are at the bottom of the 10 replaced by the Cowboys. And I know, we go back and forth about that. But I think Dallas losing to Philadelphia was almost as impressive as the Chiefs losing to the Bills. It was pretty close. And they actually made a game out of it. I'm glad to see the Chargers finally earn their way into everyone's hearts instead of just being anointed one of these top teams. I still don't think they're the 4th best team in the league. They almost lost last night. They probably should have if Denver wasn't so awful. But good to see the Vikings, who continue to be the team that I think is the surprise of the league this year. There were people picking them to go to the Super Bowl, and I thought they were needed to be drug tested, but obviously they were right. And your Bengals are sitting at number 6. That's about where they should be, but they're a dangerous team moving forward.
Yeah, the Vikings, I'm still not completely sold on them, but it's tough because really the way this league is, I think it's the Bills, Eagles, and Chiefs in whatever order, and then everybody else. And there's going to be teams that emerge. That's why the Ravens go get a DeSean Jackson. That's why, you just said the Bengals, maybe they're hitting their stride now that they're 3-3 and they've won 3 of their last 4. Maybe the Cowboys get Dak Prescott back. Maybe the Rams are able to get things rolling now on offense, even though they just lost their left tackle for the season. So we'll see. But you mentioned the Cowboys. They're 11th in these rankings, followed by those Rams at 12. The Titans stand pat at 13. The Jets move up from 21st to 14th, and the Packers slide all the way down to 15th, followed by the Patriots at 16. Atlanta at 17, moving on up. The Saints fall to 18. The Dolphins 19. The Seahawks 20. And the Indianapolis Colts, big win over your Jags, 21st.
Colts impressed me, man, because they did it without their 2 best players, Jonathan Taylor or Shaquille Leonard. And Matt Ryan found a fountain of youth, completed more passes than he ever has in his career. And they beat the Jags. They were down, and they came back and scored the game-winning points at the very end of the game. So, yeah, that was a little bit of an impressive game. Let's finish it out with the Arizona Cardinals. What up, Alex Clancy, who is going in on his Cardinals every single day. The Las Vegas Raiders, rather. Cleveland Browns at 24. I can't understand them, and I don't think it's going to change much when the other kid comes back at quarterback. The Jaguars have a tough game this week. They're at 25. They're at a real crossroads. If they lose too many more games, people are really going to start focusing on next year. The Steelers, they shocked me with the win the other day, but that's kind of what they do. The Detroit Lions, we talked about it. Dan Campbell eating kneecaps. I told you this stuff. It does not matter if you don't win. Pretty soon, nobody wants to hear you talking crazy. And finish it out with the Broncos. I don't know what's going on. They look like they're going to lose Russell Wilson for a minute. Houston at 29. Daniel Snyder's Commanders are at 30. The Bears are at 31. And the Carolina Panthers, who fired their coach last week, are at 32. And they are a hot mess. And it looks like they're trying to trade everybody on the roster.
They should. Christian McCaffrey. Going to be interesting to see where he lands. I hope he lands somewhere.
The Rams would be likely, but they don't have anything. What are the Rams going to do? The Rams can't give them anything. No. I mean, they can't. They've given everything away.
Yep. No, I mean, there's a lot of teams he fits on, right? And so it's going to be interesting to see who decides to go in and get him. But yeah, this back half, it's just bad. I mean, all of these teams, the Broncos had high hopes. The Cardinals had high hopes. The Raiders. And it's just, it's been tough sledding for a lot of these teams. So someone's going to emerge probably in this, back 10 or so teams. One team could, but man, the Commanders, Bears, Panthers, there's not much to cheer for when it comes to those teams right now. especially Taylor Heineke now leading the Commanders. Maybe that's good for Curtis Samuel and company as their wide receiver core. Terry McLaurin. It's not like he's putting up huge fantasy numbers, but
maybe maybe they get a rookie a chance from North Carolina.
Yeah, eventually, right? Sam Howell. It'll be interesting to see if they go that route.
Yeah, see what they got. I tell you what, you guys can go the route with watching the Peacock and Williamson NFL show or listening to it wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, Odyssey app. It's all over the platform. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give it to you like you can't get it anywhere else. It's a very unique show, very, very informative also. If you're a football junkie, that's where you need to be. The Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. James, it was fun, man.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun. Tony, I can't wait. I can't wait for next week. The season flying by. We're already at week 7.
Flying by, and at least now we don't have to. Well, we get a little NFL. Shout out to the Locked On NBA crew because their season starts tonight. So we get some sports every night, and independence going on. So there's a lot going on, man. So we really appreciate you taking your time to make Locked On NFL your first listen and your home, of course, for all of your NFL needs. Until next week, I'm Tony Wiggins with James Rapien, and we'll see you next time. Take care of each other.